The beginning of a new chapter often carries with it the fragrance of hope. For two Deep, James, and little BNHI, moving into a modest home was more than a change of address. It was a fragile promise of safety, warmth, and belonging. Yet behind their smiles lingered a silent fear. Would this newfound happiness be strong enough to endure the storm already brewing on the horizon? The fear beneath the quiet. As twilight descended, painting the rooftops in shades of amber, Two Deep cradled the drowsy child against her chest. The day's laughter had worn the little girl into slumber, her breathing soft and steady. It was in this tender moment that Deep's voice broke. Her words, almost a whisper, trembled with a fear too heavy to contain. I'm only afraid that one day my child will be taken away. James, standing close by, felt the weight of those words like a stone sinking into his chest. He had heard this fear before, but that night, her confession pierced deeper, echoing as both a plea and a prophecy. He laid his hand gently on her shoulder and answered with quiet resolve, "As long as I breathe, no one will take her from us." She will always have a home, love, and safety. Building a promise brick by brick. Their home was unremarkable to passers-by: whitewashed walls, modest furnishings, the faint scent of freshly cut wood. But for the three of them, every corner carried meaning. In the kitchen, Deep prepared simple meals with care, turning everyday ingredients into moments of communion. In the garden, James planted fruit trees, imagining the day little NHI would run through the yard, her hands sticky with the sweetness of their first harvest. And NHI herself brought the home alive. Her laughter rang like music, bouncing from room to room. Without even knowing it, she healed old wounds by calling James Dad, a single word powerful enough to soften the scars of her abandonment. Shadows at the door. But peace rarely lives unchallenged. Beyond their fragile sanctuary, storms gathered. James's business was faltering, investors pulled out, former partners plotted, contracts slipped away. He tried to conceal his exhaustion, but Deep saw the weight in his eyes. At night, once NHI had fallen asleep, she would reach for his hand. "You don't have to fight alone," she whispered. In her quiet strength, James found the will to keep going. Yet he knew that protecting Deep and NHI meant more than money or shelter. It meant the courage to resist every storm, armed only with faith and love. Rumors and poisoned words. The whispers began innocently enough, carried through neighbors' conversations. An old associate of James, John, had discovered Nee's existence. He sowed doubt in the community, asking cruelly, "Does James really have the right to raise this child? Where is her real family? And what if someone comes to claim her?" When these venomous words reached Deep, her heart trembled. One night, tears filled her eyes as she asked James, "What if they try to take her away from us?" I couldn't bear it. James cupped her face, his voice steady but fierce. "Listen to me, no one will take our daughter. They can attack my business, spread lies, try to destroy me. But this home, this family, we will defend it to the very end." Still, the fear lingered. At school, classmates questioned NHI about why she didn't live with her real parents. Confused and shaken, she ran home. "Mama," she whispered, "will I have to leave?" The words shattered Deep's heart. She clutched the girl tightly, hiding her tears. "No, my love. This is your home. This is where you belong." A brewing storm. James dug deeper. His investigation confirmed the truth. John was reaching out to Nee's distant relatives, long absent and indifferent, now lured by promises of influence or money. What had once seemed a distant threat now loomed as an immediate danger. Deep felt the earth shift beneath her feet. But James, gripping her hand, vowed, "They want to use her as a weapon against me. But I will never allow it." The next morning, he sought the counsel of a trusted lawyer. He laid bare Nee's story, the abandonment by her parents, the rejection from grandparents, and the years she had already lived in their care. The lawyer nodded thoughtfully. "The law can be harsh, but it does recognize love. If we prove she belongs here, not just legally, but emotionally, you stand a real chance." While documents were prepared, Deep doubled down on her devotion. Every walk to the market, every trip to school, every moment in the garden was a silent affirmation to NHI. "You have a mother. You have a home." A mother's cry, a father's vow, yet the dread never fully left. One evening, after putting NHI to bed, Deep leaned against James's shoulder and whispered the words that had haunted her for so long. "I'm only afraid that one day my child will be taken away." James closed his eyes, pulling her into a fierce embrace. "Listen to me, Deep. Neither you nor NHI will ever be taken from me. If I must face courts, enemies, even my own past, I will. What we've built is real. No one can destroy it." That night, under the vast silence of the sky, James made an unbreakable vow. Their love would not be surrendered to fear. The confrontation. News came on a rainy afternoon. John had summoned James to a discreet cafe. It wasn't a request, but a provocation. James went, knowing the confrontation was unavoidable. Across a wooden table, John stirred his coffee with a smile too sharp to be friendly. "James," he drawled, "everything has a price. Even that little girl." James kept his composure. "Say what you came to say." John leaned in, his voice dripping with malice. I know she isn't your daughter. I know her family exists. With a little incentive, I can convince them to take her back. Imagine Deep's pain. Imagine the headlines. A child raised by a man who had no right to keep her. Unless, of course, you're willing to trade, contracts, projects, maybe even your company. For a fleeting moment, James felt the crushing weight of choice. He thought of Nee's laughter, Deep's trembling fears. Then he raised his gaze, firm and unshakable. Listen well, John. You can try to ruin my company. You can spread lies, but you will never take NHI from us. She is not a bargaining chip. She is my daughter. The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut. John sneered. We'll see, James. We'll see if the law, society, even your investors agree. James rose, his eyes locked on his adversary. He left the cafe knowing the storm was no longer coming, it was here. More than blood, more than law. That night, watching NHI sleep peacefully under her blanket, James made another silent oath. No one will ever take her away. The battle ahead would be waged not just in boardrooms or courtrooms, but in the very definition of family. For what does it mean to be a parent? Is it the bond of blood, or the daily act of choosing to stay, to protect, to love? Deep's raw confession, "I'm only afraid of losing my child," was not just her truth, but a universal one. We fear many things, the loss of wealth, the uncertainty of the future. Yet nothing compares to the terror of losing those we love. In their struggle, James and Deep showed that family is not defined by titles or documents. James, once hardened by the cold world of business, discovered that real power lies not in contracts, but in the embrace of a child who trusts. And Deep, with her quiet resilience, proved that love requires courage, the courage to fight, to sacrifice, to believe. The storm may rage, courts may question, society may whisper, but the lesson endures. Love shared is never diminished. It grows stronger, deeper, and more enduring with every trial. And in that modest home, beneath a roof held up not by beams but by devotion, one truth remained unshakable: no storm could extinguish the light of a family built on love.